right, fool? Shit. Let it be known then. Circle tight,
What's interesting about that is, like, when I say, have you seen this much division, like, that mostly happens on social media.
Right.
Like, out on the street, do you ever have any problems with people? Like you would think that it's happening. Wouldn't you think we're all at each other's throats and, like, there's all this, all this arguments on the street? Like, I've never had an argument with anybody.
I did work, so my last job...
Twitter fingers turned to...
At my last job, I felt it heavy. But
really?
They were like a group of people that they were all like, I guess you would say far left people, right?
Yeah.
They were all like super far left, and I was just like, I would work there, and I would kind of like jam up their argument all the time because they'll be like debating about certain shit. I'm like, yeah, but the problem is you guys are just focusing on one side. Like, if you really think about the whole thing, this other person's doing it as well, and I'll like name drop their kind of like people that they're fans of or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but this person does this or this person does that, or in this time, you know, like Bill Clinton, you know, when he did the act of turning the crack rock into, or I forget what it's called, but when he did that
was Biden actually was the one that said that.
Yeah, Biden and Clinton.
Biden was like, if they got a crack, give me a quarter.
Right.
I don't know if he sounded dumber then or now, but I mean, sorry.
So like shit like that, I'm like, they just like, you know, I was hearing it a lot, and I didn't see it outside of it, out of the internet. So when I would feel it there, I was kind of like, this is crazy. Like, these people are really indoctrinated by this shit, you know? Like,
yeah. But it's like, you know what's crazy is, like, there's 10% on one side that's fucking crazy and 10% on the other side. And then the rest of us are just trying to fucking live our lives. Right, you know what I mean? Right, like, I don't know. Maybe you guys are right or I don't know what
I'm in the middle. I vote for guns, but hey, if you don't want a kid, fuck it.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, like,
I'm kind of in the same boat. So, I want to keep my guns. I just want you to leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to fucking get into your business. Just stay out of my business. You know what I mean? Like.
And if you're gay, that's cool. But I feel like if you're pushing it towards the kids, that's not cool.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that's my problem with that. Like, I feel like, yeah, I mean, hey, I don't care. Whatever you do with an adult, do it. You know what I mean? But when you start, like, feeding it to kids and trying to, like, that's where it gets, like, oh, come on. Now I feel like we got to speak up because, like, they're, like, one of my son, his teacher, he told him, like, oh, I'm gay, you know, or whatever. And it was just kind of like, why even bring that up? Like, what does your sexual preference have to do with my son? So the day I met him, I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm such and such. And like, just randomly, I'm like, I'm straight, by the way. And I didn't even, you know, I just brought it up randomly. And you could see that he felt thrown off, you know. And I was like, oh, did I make you uncomfortable? And I was like, and he was like, no. And I was like, oh, sorry. I just thought that that's what we do because that's what you told my kid, you know. And he felt like, oh.
I see what you're saying.
Bazinga.
I got him, you know.
You know, the thing about it is, though, it's like, it's not about what your sexual preference is. It's about talking about sexual shit.
Right.
And it's, I think it's unnecessary.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people miss the point. Because it's like, if you say, I don't have kids, so I don't really have skin in the game. Yeah. But, like, I understand where you guys are coming from. So, like, if you're like, look, my kid's 9. He doesn't know anything about sex at all. So, like, don't talk about any sex.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's where kind of a lot of the problems are, you know? It's sort of like when you start looking at, is this even relevant to your
No,
podcast?
it is. It's absolutely relevant.
We talk about
but I mean, that's how I see it. It's just sort of like they're not even old enough to give a shit about sexuality. So why talk about sexuality to a kid? You know, it just seems weird to me, regardless of what kind of straight sex or any sex. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they're too young.
You're talking about
they're
sex?
throwing rocks at their neighbors. You know what I mean? Like that. Let them do that shit. I mean,
had a niece
that's what I did when I was a kid. Maybe they're just looking at their phones.
Well, I mean, the phone is probably the death of us.
I had a niece that was like, she's like 8 or 9, right? And I was over there in LA with my family, and all the kids come up to me, I'm Tio David, you know, Tio. And then they're like, I'm not gonna say anything. They're like, she wants to tell you something. I'm like, okay, go ahead. What's up, mama? And she comes and she's like, I'm bi. And then like she kind of runs away, and they're all like, everybody else is laughing, all the other kids. And then after I'm like, come here, you know, like.
How old was she?
She's like 8 or 9. She's small, right?
Yeah.
And then.
No, you're not.
But she's on TikTok a lot, you know. She's
Yeah,
heavy on
that's-
TikTok. And then so she comes and I'm like, come here, come back, you know. She comes, and then after and her mom was right there, and I'm like, have you ever had a boyfriend? You know, have you ever kissed a boy? And I was like, have you ever had a girlfriend? Have you ever kissed a boy, a girl, or anything? And I started kind of hitting it with like those, and she was like, no. And I was like, so how would you know that you are bi if you have never, you know, done that? Like, you're not even thinking about it. You're not even. And she could tell that she was kind of like, oh shit, what am I talking about? You know?
Yeah, I mean that doesn't.
And it was like,
that doesn't make sense to me.
you're so young. You're not even thinking about like that type of lifestyle yet. You know, when you get older, you'll realize, okay, you know, maybe then you could tell me when you're 18, 19, then, or even 16, 15. If then you feel like you're, you know, headed towards this way, then okay, you know, cool. But 9, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you don't even know what, you probably don't even know what a dick is, you know? Like.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not even about being bi. It's about like you're talking about who you want to have sex with.
Right.
That's what that. Yeah. That's what that means, right?
Right.
So at 9, you don't know if you're anything.
Right.
Like if they came up and said that I'm straight, you'd be like, how do you know? I didn't know I was straight when I was 9.
Right.
I am now, but like when I
that
was 9,
that was a more pure side of,
Yeah.
of like, or that was a more pure you, and that's where life was like, you were oblivious to all these things, and I feel like, man, like, I guess the word that we were trying to say is indoctrinate. You know what I mean? Like, they're indoctrinating our kids, and you can go to you can't go to the store and buy cigarettes. You can't go to the store and buy alcohol. You know you got to do this. There's curfew laws on.
You got to be 21 even now.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what? To get a blunt? For
Right.
real? Damn.
But I mean, if you feel like you want to change it over, you can.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're letting you do that. They're just letting our kids do that. All of that stuff affects me. It's all about the Graff, you know. Graff is like our lifestyle. And when you said earlier, what did you say earlier? And I was like, Blade. Because it's like an underground world, you know. Like, if you know, you know. But like, if you don't, you're just driving on the freeway while your passengers like looking.
Yeah.
But
to you, the non-graph writer, it's just a bunch of shit.
right.
You don't know the difference.
So, but I mean, part of our daily lives and things that we go through are these types of things too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we got kids. You know, some things happen, or I mean, the little kid approached you and told you that. You know, you're like, and then you hit him back with the bazinga.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and he probably felt way more offended, like, cause it probably offended him in a way that he didn't even realize it. You know. But I was at Berlin Bar this weekend, and me and Enough, shout out Enough, we sat there for 2 hours and chopped it up about kind of this stuff, and then other people kind of like, what are you guys talking about? Yeah. So it's like the topic out there of I'll go somewhere. Last time I told you, I was at the Punk Rock Museum, and as soon as I pulled in there, one of this girl's friends was like, oh, I should ask him. He's a guy. I'm gonna talk to him. He'll probably know. Boom, get right into the gender stuff. I looked at her and I was like,
You picked the wrong one.
I was like, damn, yeah, because I'm gonna give it to you right now. I'm about to tell you everything you think I'm gonna say. I'm gonna be like the opposite of that.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Like I don't know that much outside of what I see on the phone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So like I kind of don't even. I don't really get into these conversations too much because like I'm like, how much of what I'm seeing is. I mean, how do I put it? Like I don't know
It's
how
not affecting
widespread it is. Well, not so much that. I mean, it kind of is. It is to a certain degree because like I'm part of humanity. But like
Correct,
even though I
correct.
don't have kids, like I care if you have a kid and something's
Right.
going on. Like I give a shit about that. But it's I also don't know like, you know, if they're doing all this stuff. I'm like, are they doing that stuff or is that what's getting blown up? And you
Right.
guys are telling me you're seeing stuff
Yeah,
firsthand.
I
like
mean,
I
not
can't
much,
really.
but yeah, it happens.
I can't say it like what I'm seeing firsthand, but I can say like if you're talking about any sex stuff, I think just leave that out of the kid's thing.
Right.
Like when I was a kid.
So what is an appropriate age then? You know what I mean, because that's what we're faced with next.
Yeah.
You know, before it was like, you stole your dad's Playboy and you got to see it, ha ha ha. You know, or you guys played 7 minutes in heaven with spin the bottle or whatever the heck. But like now it's like beyond that.
I don't.
Like,
I don't
you spin the bottle, you're like, I'm gay now. I'm just
yeah, I don't remember like what age. I know when I was a kid, like 6th grade was when you got sex ed.
Yeah.
And
middle school.
And you had to bring a slip home, and somebody had to approve it. Like, what I'm hearing is like they're kind of like talking about shit without approving the parents. I think that's kind of fucked up. And I'm talking about any sexual stuff, but like, as far as like to answer your question, like, obviously you have to have these conversations with people so that they know what's going on and all this kind of shit. Like when I was a kid, like during the AIDS stuff, because I was a kid, I was born in the 70s, so like when AIDS came out, I was old enough to know what was going on. I don't remember what year it was, but
I think it was 81. Is the movie Philadelphia? Is it 81?
Was it 81?
I think so. I believe
Yeah, so I was like a little kid, but like we had a family friend that was kind of like my mom's sister, but it was just like a really good friend.
Right.
And her roommate was a gay dude, and like, so I was probably 9 or something like that, and I understood what that was, like, to a certain degree.
But they were like discreet about it. Like it wasn't meant to be everybody's business.
Well, I don't think any sexuality should be anybody's business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but we got. You know, I'm not a hater of what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's the behavior that you're doing behind that. You know, like you know, they got Pride Month. They got the dudes dressing up like nuns or whatever over there at the stadium, right there at downtown LA, right at the Staples Stadium. Isn't that the picture that we?
Yeah, I remember.
Right, they were dressing up as
at
nuns.
the Dodger Stadium. They were trying to do that. Right, that's right.
They're like dressing up as nuns, and they're like acting like they're hugging each other. But there's like kids there. Like it was just like, whoa! Like, do you not see maybe that? Hey, you know, don't do that. Or I don't know.
The way, I mean, see, the thing is, like, it's an interesting conversation because, like, you don't want to hate on somebody's lifestyle, but it's sort of like, think about it like this. Let's say we had straight month, and we had strippers, and you know, maybe they didn't take all their clothes off, but they were like giving each other lap dances and grinding on each other.
Oh,
Would
EDC.
you want kids there?
Oh yeah,
Would you want kids there for that?
No.
And that's
for straight month? Like, it shouldn't be. I think like over sexualizing things and having it around kids. I think that's the problem.
What's the other video? Like, you go to Target in the boys section, you got rainbow stuff. You know what I mean?
I think like music, right? Music kind of like plays a big part in that. Is that all these rappers and artists, and because I know that's what happened in my era. Like when I was young, Crying 2001 dropped, and it was like, I just want to fuck you, and we were all singing that. Like we just wanted to fuck. I mean, but at the time, I guess I was a teenager, but I know some of the younger homies that were kind of like singing with it too and shit like that. But I feel like now that the music more is like WAP, like you like I have nieces that do cheerleading and shit like that, and these girls are singing WAP and stuff like that, and I feel like that they're so young hearing it, thinking it that that's all that they know. Then they see it on the Instagram and they think that's just normal lifestyle to them because that's what's everywhere. You know?
Yeah, but you know what? You got Salt and Pepper.
They were singing about
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's my aunt. Like I didn't know what it meant. I didn't. I really didn't know what it meant. And it came on one time. My aunt came and picked me and my cousin, and we were gonna go to his house. And the song came on the radio, and she turned it right away. But I was already like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
You know what I mean? And then later on in the day, because like back then we would listen to the radio.
Yeah.
And now it's podcasting,
Listen
2
to
cents,
whatever
and you
fuck
know.
want.
But yeah, that's how it goes. So we would listen to the radio, and then she turned it off again when the song came on, and I was just like, I told my cousin, "Hey, what's wrong with the song?" He's like, "You don't understand?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, all right, I got you."
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point because it's like the sexual stuff was out there, like fucking 2 Live Crew. Remember that? Like, That shit was like, it doesn't get any more, you know, any more sexual than that, you know. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I think like before all of the stuff that we're kind of talking about now, I started becoming concerned just about the access to things like pornography and stuff. Right. Any kind of pornography, straight, gay, whatever. It doesn't. It's all kind of like
OnlyFans.
Yeah, for me, I'm just kind of like kids shouldn't have access to this kind of stuff. And I was painting in South Central, and so we're painting this wall, and this was like 2014, 2015 or something. So things were a little different then, and these kids are watching us paint, and they're like, "What happens when you go over the hole right there?" Because it was like a hole in the brick wall. Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, it's just spray paint. It goes right over it." And this little kid, I swear he was probably like 6 years old. He's like, "It's a glory hole." Oh, and shit. I was like, it just fucking really bothered me because I'm like, dude, that little kid should not know what that is. Right. You know what I mean? So like for me, like for me, like the problem for me is not so much what kind of sexual shit. It's just sexual shit. Kids getting exposed to shit about any sex, I think is like.
You watch SpongeBob?
No, never.
Probably not, right? You watch SpongeBob?
No, I mean,
kids and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, not that I'm like, hey man, you don't watch SpongeBob? No, but Ren and Stampy, Beavis and Butthead. Like, there's a lot of stuff when we really go and think. Like, there was some stuff out there that now when you watch it or like listen to it, you're like, whoa, that was deep. They said that right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think like when you push the envelope with stuff like that, when the access is a little bit different, because like what you're talking about, stuff coming on the phone, on the radio, or on TV. This is like programming that like it just comes out when it comes out.
Right.
And then I think nowadays, like with that little kid knowing what a glory hole is, the problem is like he's able to access pornography, you know, and so like when I was a kid, like the only porn you ever saw, like what you said, like you find a Playboy that your dad had or some kid's dad has a bunch of VHS tapes or something. It's sort of like you probably still shouldn't really be looking at that shit, but there's a certain age that you start wanting to see stuff.
Puberty, you know, puberty. But I mean, on one hand, have you seen the show Vikings?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in their Earth or whatever where they live at, that family, the kids are just right there in the bed, on their bed. Just like not no rooms. It's like the whole inside is like, all right, parents' bed, kids' bed. You know, maybe the baby's crib. They got the table, they got the fireplace or whatever. And when Ragnar wanted it, or you know, or whatever, like
so they were right there.
They were just right there. So, but see that's when it. I think in that more natural state, it's just natural. See, but when we make it the topic, like what we're doing now, we're promoting it. And now we're putting it out there in that fashion, you know, because
I think we're making it more than
it is. And
no, that makes sense because we used to be more like animals, back
absolutely.
Before like civilization and shit. So like all the stuff, because like you're not gonna go and like take a shit in front of everybody,
right?
But like we used to do that. Like animals do it all the time. Like I'm watching my dog taking a shit in front of me. The dog's not embarrassed, but I'm not gonna take a shit right here in front of you guys. Like that would be weird as fuck. But we used to do that at one point.
Hey, you're like, hey, what's up, homie? How you doing, man?
Yeah, and so like I think
I've done
the
it
same
before,
thing is like dogs and animals have sex in front of each other. So I mean, maybe there is something to that, like that we're kind of like putting too much emphasis on all of this kind of stuff.
I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, big buff dude. Like if you look at during those times, 70s, 80s, 90s, like the models were like cut dudes. The girl models were real feminine. There was no plus size models there. There was none of that there. I mean, and all of these things are like, in the end, they're kind of dumb to talk about. They're not dumb to talk about. It's where we're at. So we got to talk about it. It's definitely out there. It's definitely things that are happening. Like you go through your YouTube feed and, you know, it's like this, that, oh man, damn, what? And then what do we do? Hey, did you see that one video? Or you send it to your friend. You know, you might send... You and your girl probably bounce videos back and forth to each other, you know, and all these things are just, some things are, I don't think we should have the phone. I think what we said last a couple weeks ago. See, we keep talking about it because it's a really hot topic in just in general, man. Like, you have your computer at home, you got kids. Hey, you know what? This guy, he gets an hour. You got 2 kids. He gets an hour, and he gets an hour, and they shouldn't have that access to it. Like, oh, they need a phone when they go to school. What if something happens? Then something happens. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we survived a very long time without that stuff.
Do you know that we're in the most safest time era in all of times?
Yeah.
Like, why are we so scared?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about. There's so many things that, like, you know, you got me thinking about a lot of stuff. Because, like, at one point I'm saying, like, kids shouldn't be exposed to sexual stuff at this age. But then you brought up a good point, like, well, this stuff used to happen out in the open.
Right.
And so I think, like, what may be also part of the problem is, while you may see that stuff every now and then, like, growing up in a situation where your civilization hasn't advanced to the point where people are like, we got to do this behind closed doors, and like, we can't let the kids see this stuff. Yeah. It used to be like, this is just what we do. This is how you make a baby, and I'm gonna make one. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of a little more.
Well, I think that's why we're here.
But I think where one of the problems is like, you couldn't just go and watch people have sex at any time you wanted to. You know what I mean?
I don't think at any time,
like,
but right. I do believe that prostitution, thingamabob or whatever, I think that's been going on though, just
for sure.
But I think too, like,
the
it's
ease
the
of
way
access is probably part of the problem, because like, there's studies that show that, like, if you get into something like talking about pornography, like, your brain releases a bunch of dopamine when you're watching that kind of stuff.
Correct.
And so the more of that you watch, like, it's not good for your brain to see that amount. So like, if you can go on a phone, and imagine, like, when I was going through puberty, I didn't have that kind of access, but like, I can imagine if I had a phone, it would be bad.
Did you watch porn?
When I was a kid?
Have I watched porn? Yes, I have. Was I like one of those guys who's like, hey dog, I just got my dad bought this new porn, dog. I got it from him.
No, but like, I had, yeah, of course. I mean, it wasn't like what you're talking about, but like this, I remember like a friend of mine found his dad's stuff, and we watched it. But it was super weird, like sitting in a room with like other dudes,
Everybody
like watching this shit, and I was like, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem right, you know. So
you are a toy.